Magic's newest upcoming set, Universes Beyond Warhammer 40K Commander decks, are coming out soon, and there's a ton of interesting cards. Now, I've been away for a little bit, and I'm deciding to come back now. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at the top 10 most expensive cards from the set and kind of taking a look at them. And unlike my normal videos where I have already seen all the cards and I'm kind of telling you why they're great. These are going to be my first reactions to the cards, and I'm going to kind of explore what makes them such powerful contenders. Typically, the most expensive cards in these decks are going to be the best. Now, there are a couple disclaimers before we jump into this. First off, all prices are listed in USD and are from Card Kingdom, which do typically mean they have higher prices, but it's a nice consistent baseline across all of my videos, and it will still relatively scale. So something on TCG Player will probably be a couple dollars cheaper on each of these. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into this. Starting with number 10, Mystic Forge. That is actually a reprint, originally printed in Core Set 2020, but it's a 4-cost artifact, and it says you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells and colorless spells from the top of your library, and then you can tap, pay 1 life, and exile the top card of your library. Really good if you get like a land on the top of your library, something like that. Overall, this card can be a powerhouse in artifact decks, in like Tron style decks. It actually is like restricted in older formats. So like it is a very, very powerful card. And so having it see a reprint is really, really good. One thing I was very curious about with this set, it is kind of like a limited print run in the sense that these cards will probably never be printed again in these arts, considering it is someone else's like property. It is Universes Beyond. So I was curious whether that would make them more valuable or less valuable than like the normal versions. And as of now, it seems to make them a little bit less valuable. And we'll look at that here in a second. But here, you can find this one in the Necron Dynasties commander deck. And so, yeah, if you're wanting to pick up this copy, it will be in that deck. But yeah, comparing it to the M20 version, the M20 version currently going for $11.99, a little bit more. It could just be that the Mystic Forge price on the M20 version hasn't come down given the reprint. These are still pre-orders at this point. Again, if you're watching this far in the future, prices will be down, probably from what you're seeing now, unless these become a collector's item. Either way, looking at number 9, it is Shadow in the Warp, our first new card. It's 1 red-green for an enchantment, and it says the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player. So in essence, this is you want to play creatures and you don't want to play non-creatures, but it's a little bit weird. A lot of the time, cards like this will be symmetrical and then be like low-costed for it, so it would also damage you if you cast non-creatures and maybe give your opponents cheaper creatures, and it's meant to be something where you get the advantage of you're playing the right deck, but this is just asymmetrical. It can only help you and it can only hurt your opponents, which is generally a good thing. You have to consider in a 4-player game of Commander, and I'm going to be looking at all these cards through a Commander lens, this thing can do a lot of damage, and the fact that the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast, this is the equivalent of having 2 more lands if you are a creature-based strategy. So this card seems insane to me. You pay 3, you could then theoretically cast a creature that same turn, and it only ended up costing you 1 more mana. So, all you have to do is cast 1 creature, and this is essentially a 1-drop that's going to hit your opponents every time they cast their first non-creature spell. Seems like an insane card to me. I don't want to say a must include in every, Gruul deck, but if you're a creature-heavy deck, you're going to want this card. This can be found in the Tyranoi Swarm deck. You can see that there. I will be just showing what deck you can find all of these cards in. I am not going to be doing a full-on analysis of every single deck in terms of pricing, but I may do that in a separate video. Next, we have Blood for the Blood God. It's 8 black, black, red for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. Discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile Blood for the Blood God. In the right deck, this is really, really good. If you're in a sacrifice-based deck, it's not that hard to sacrifice 2, 3, 4 creatures, maybe even 8, and cast this for 3. This seems like the kind of card that you could kind of just burn out your entire hand and then cast this, and then boom, you're good. The other thing I can see is your opponent's board wipe. This is an instant speed spell. At least 8 creatures have died this turn, and then it becomes a 3-drop. You get to basically reset your hand and deal a ton of damage. This card seems really good, even as just like anti-board wipe protection, which black and red don't have a ton of. So seems like an interesting way to do that. Also, you can see the prices. This is $10, kind of around the same range. This can be found in the Ruinous Powers deck, so if you're wanting to pick that up. Also, these are all the non-foil versions, obviously. Biotransference is a 4-drop enchantment in black. It says creatures you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So it's going to make everything of yours artifacts, meaning like artifact, tutor spell. They're going to be able to go into your library and get artifacts. A lot of really cool stuff there. And then whenever you cast an artifact spell, which is now going to be a creature spell, you lose 1 life and create a 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature token. I think this card's really good. I mean, even if you don't have artifact synergies in your deck, technically this is whenever you cast a creature, create a 2/2. That's really cool. But if you are in an artifact-based strategy, this is whenever you cast an artifact, get another artifact and a creature. This just seems like a no-brainer in any black artifact deck. It is also going for $10, so similar to the previous ones in price, and it can be found in the Necron Dynasties commander deck, and you'll notice that is a theme. Next, we have Poxwalkers. It's 2 and a black for a creature zombie 3/1 with Death Touch. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, return Poxwalkers from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This seems pretty good. I mean, a 3/1 Death Toucher, it, does a decent amount of damage to opponents, but it can pretty much just stall combat. And what's really nice about it is that if you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, that includes things like the command zone, so especially in Commander, you can consistently get this guy back out. The reason for him to be this expensive, I'm not sure. There may be some sort of infinite combo that I'm not thinking of. Like we can cast something from your graveyard and then he comes back and then sack them for mana and then cast the same thing from your graveyard. They'd be part of some loop, but either way, seems like a pretty decent card, especially because you're almost guaranteed to always get that cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, and Death Touch is a pretty powerful mechanic. This is found in the Ruinous Powers deck, so again, if you're wanting to pick it up, it's also our first time seeing a price bump since the very beginning, so it is now $10.99. Next, we have the Scepter of Eternal Glory. It's a 4-drop legendary artifact. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. I want to say in Commander, normally we're looking for 2 drops or less in terms of ramp. So this is a 4-drop. So it's going to have to do something pretty impressive here. But you can tap and add 3 mana of any one color. Activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. I actually think this is a pretty interesting card, but it's going to be more focused around monocolor decks. Any deck that's 3 or more colors is just not going to run this because you're going to be running too many dual lands for this to consistently tap for 3. But for example, if you're in a mono red, mono white, mono really anything outside of maybe green, this seems like a pretty good inclusion because you're more than likely going to have a lot of basic lands that are all going to have the same name. It does kind of punish you though for running like half snow, half main like lands. So that is something to be aware of. I'm going to guess this is the mono black one. Yep, this is in Necron Dynasties. So pretty good. You'll notice that a lot of the really powerful cards are from that deck. So if you are wanting to pick up a deck, that is one of the better ones to pick up, at least from my first little glance. Next, we have Chromatic Lantern, not a new card, printed in Guilds of Ravnica, printed before that. It is a 3-drop artifact. Lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color, and it can tap for 1 mana of any color. Not a huge, I don't understand the hype around this. I really only run it in 5 color decks, and even then, that part of that's just laziness of not wanting to tap my mana correctly, but it can be nice guaranteeing that you have whatever colors whenever you need, and it is a pretty pricey card, so it's good to see a reprint of it. It is Ruinous Powers deck. Pretty good card. Comparing it to other printings, it is actually a little bit cheaper. So this is the list version of Guild of Ravnica, or sorry, list version of Chromatic Lantern. It is the cheapest version you can buy right now in Card Kingdom outside of the Warhammer one. So yeah, we're looking at about $3 cheaper to get the one from the Commander deck. Next, we have Vexillus Praetor. It is a 4-drop white creature. It's a 3/4 with Flash and Vigilance, so not bad. Just, I mean, I wouldn't run a 3/4 with Flash and Vigilance for 4, but it has one other ability, and that is commanders you control have protection from everything. Now, this is one of the cards I actually did see before making this video. It just popped up on Twitter. It seems pretty good. For 4 mana, you can then give your commander protection for everything. And because it has Flash, people aren't going to see it coming. People are going to spend that removal spell. You can flash this in, and that's pretty good. But it also means you can play it before you play your commander. One of the issues, if you have a 5-drop commander that is really, really good, and it's a kill on sight kind of commander, you could maybe play this on your end step, right before it's about to be your turn 5. It's no one can really respond to that unless they have instant speed removal, then cast your commander, and now they need 2 pieces of removal. So you can kind of, instead of having to wait extra long to play your commander and hold up removal, you can do, or sorry, hold up protection, you can hold up the protection beforehand. So this is 12.99, and it is found in the Forces of the Imperium deck. Next, we have Talisman of Progress, another reprint. You'll notice a lot of these are like ramp cards, and that's because those are typically the most powerful. It's a 2-drop artifact that taps and adds colorless, or it can add blue or white if you let it deal 1 damage to you. It's going for $16 right now, and it can be found in the Forces of Imperium deck. What's really interesting is that this is actually more expensive than the old Talisman, and that is weird because this is a really old set. Kind of weird that that's happening like that. I'm not exactly sure why. I will say the art, I prefer the art on the new one. But yeah, pretty good to see a reprint. We haven't seen a reprint of these in a very, very long time. And then for number 1, we have the Golden Throne coming in at $15.99. It's a 4-drop legendary artifact. If you would lose the game, instead exile the Golden Throne and your life total becomes 1. And then 1,000 souls die every day. Tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana of any combination of colors. All right, so basically, top one's kind of gimmicky. What this is tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana of any color. Being able to just sacrifice your creature, like a card that said sacrifice your creature, do nothing, would be very, very good. This does have to tap, so it can only do it once, but then you are adding 3 mana. This in sacrifice decks is really, really crazy. And on top of that, it gives you an extra turn. No one can finish you in 1 turn unless they have like, at least with creatures, unless they have like direct damage or double strike or something like that. This just seems like a very, very, very interesting card. Sacrifice decks are going to want to run it the most, but you could even technically throw this into any deck. Can be nice if your commander gets like turned into a frog. Like it can be run in any deck, but this really is going to be focusing on those aristocrat style decks. Overall, very, very fun, very awesome card. It can be found, by the way, in the Forces of Imperium deck. So you'll notice the top 3 most expensive cards were all in the Forces of Imperium deck. Pretty good choice. Honestly, all of the decks seem like they are pretty good value and have some fun cards in them. But either way, this is not going to be a video where I break down the prices of every single deck. If you want to see that, leave a comment down below, hit that like button. I'm really excited to get back into Magic. I took a little bit of a break there, just as I felt like I was burned out, but I feel like I'm ready to come back. And yeah, I'm just excited to get back into Magic. I will see you guys in the next one.